Sperling, we now know, threatened the famed Washington Post journalist Bob Woodward. This all started last week when Woodward challenged the president's version of how the sequester came about and got serious pushback from the White House. Then yesterday, Woodward claims he got a threatening email from a staffer reading, quote, "I apologize for raising my voice in our conversation today. You're focusing on a few specific trees that give a very wrong impression of the forest, but perhaps we will just not see eye to eye here. I think you will regret staking out that claim." Now we know that person is the economic advisor,
right,
Gene Sperling, in the White House. And now we know Doug Schoen, former pollster for President Clinton and a Fox News contributor, is set to do battle with Monica Crowley, syndicated radio talk show host and a Fox News contributor as well. Good morning to both of you.
Good morning.
Monica, you have a special relationship with Bob Woodward.
Well, not quite.
In a professional sense, he said.
Thank you.
Because you worked in the White House during the Watergate years.
I did not. Actually, I was a mere embryo when President Nixon was elected, but I did work with President Nixon during the last 4 years of his life, 1990 to 1994, and we often talked about the Watergate scandal. And what's fascinating to me about this whole dynamic is that the historical ironies are abounding here, that here we had Bob Woodward, Washington Post legendary liberal journalist, now caught in the mix of this back and forth with a very liberal White House.
Doug?
You know,
You think it's disturbing, though, don't you?
Well, it is disturbing. I know Gene Sperling. I worked with him when I was working for Bill Clinton over 6 years between 94 and 2000. I'd like to think of Gene as a friend of mine. But Gene has a tone that he knows best. He knows what's right. And unless and only if you really listen to him will you get it right. And it bespeaks a tone in the White House, Bill, that I think is unfortunate. An unwillingness to bargain, an unwillingness to consider alternatives, and a sense that we're right, and if you disagree with us, woe unto you.
Well, here's my sense, though. The story caught fire on its own because Woodward kept talking. He was on MSNBC yesterday. Here he is on CNN late yesterday afternoon with Wolf Blitzer. Roll this now.
They're not happy at all, and some people kind of, said, look, we don't see eye to eye on this. They never really said, though, afterwards they've said that this is factually wrong, and it was said to me in an email by a top...
What was said? Yeah.
It was said very clearly, you will regret doing this.
Does the White House expect Bob Woodward to take on the president?
Well,
is that the bottom line rub here?
I don't know. What's interesting is that if this is in fact a White House attack on Bob Woodward, it's not because they think he's lying. It's because they believe he's telling the truth about the president and about his position on the sequester. The reason this is a story is that this is not the first time that this White House is engaged in these kinds of intimidation tactics. Remember, right after he won, he leaned across the table to the Republicans and he said, "I won." Then he singled out a Democratic congressman who had voted against the stimulus, Pete Defazio, and he said, "Don't think we're not keeping score, brother." And then CBS News' Cheryl Atkinson in 2011 was asking serious questions about Fast and Furious. A White House staffer, top person in the White House, called her and screamed and swore at her. So this is a pattern of behavior on the part of this White House. That's why this Woodward story has extra legs, because it lends to this pattern.
I have to agree with Monica. We may differ, and we do, on substance much of the time, but the tone of the White House is we're right, you're wrong. And you heard the president after the election, Monica, same theme. He said, I won this election. I'm entitled to get what I want. He only got 52%. We have a fiscal crisis, and bottom line, unless we come together to deal with the sequester, we all lose.
Just one more quick thing here. David Plouffe tweeted this. Watching Woodward the last 2 days, roll this here now, is like imagining my idol Mike Schmidt facing live pitching again. Perfection gained once is rarely repeated.
Incredible that